Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan. I use she, her pronouns. It's so awesome to be with you all. I currently live in a town called Immokalee. It's based in Southwest Florida. It's a town of migrant farm workers, and I work here alongside a migrant farm worker organization called the Coalition of Immokalee Workers. But I am a coordinator of the Student Farm Worker Alliance. I'm a national organizer that works with all the students and youth that are looking to organize in solidarity with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers. So I actually do a lot of education. I know maybe not explicitly like the agriculture education that you all are doing like in gardens or at farms, stuff like that, but do a lot of education, sharing organizing skills alongside also doing a lot of presentations and education around the migrant farm worker experience. My primary interests when I was in SFF was agricultural education. Took all of Lisa's permaculture courses, and I focused a lot more so in my last year and a half, 2 years of college in food justice, working on a lot of different projects, including being part of a member or being on the steering committee of the Student Farm Worker Alliance.
My name is Will Amira. I use he, him pronouns. Kind of two things that I do. On the one hand, my partner and I started Hungry Reaper Farm earlier this year. We're like a 1.5 acre kind of like market garden style farm. On the other hand, I work for Land for Good, which is a New England wide nonprofit that works on farmland tenure issues. So everything from helping land seekers, kind of like myself and probably some of you down the line, to find land. My primary focus when I got to UMass was definitely on the production side of things.
So for me, when I was 17, I had a pretty bad concussion, which kind of led me to reevaluate things. I was a state swimmer in high school, 3-sport athlete. And then basically I couldn't do any movement for about 5 months as I recovered from my concussion. So I couldn't, spin in a circle without getting dizzy, look at lights. So basically someone introduced me to yoga, which led to meditation, psychology, neuroscience, and kind of just went down this rabbit hole of healing myself. And recognizing that people are putting out pharmaceuticals and things that just weren't working for me. So I kind of went down the holistic health path, worked with nutritionists, acupuncturists, such therapists, basically anyone in the holistic health world. And so I actually went to University of New Hampshire my first 2 years and was studying nutrition psychology, but just didn't feel like it was a good fit. And I originally went there. I was in the Air Force ROTC program for my first semester. Quickly realized it wasn't for me. And then transferred to UMass my junior year, where I studied sustainable food and farming. But my focus there was really on the holistic health side of things. How does soil health affect me as a human? How does, the herbs that we're consuming in herbalism courses, how does that affect me as a human? How does, like Sarah said, we work together on the yoga for farmers. How can we incorporate, a holistic lifestyle all together from the ground up? So that's what really I was focused on, was more of the human side of farming. Like, how does this all work together with the humans? Because a lot of farmers, they're bad posture, they're hunched over. How can we really help the people creating our food do so and sustain themselves? And, being myself, wanting to be, a homestead owner at some point in the near future, how can I do that for the longevity of things? So basically, after I graduated, I worked on a few farms, kind of had some jobs, went to Asia and really learned the Eastern philosophies over there. Another UMass grad, Mithra, who Sarah knows, was one of my good friends here. So he's Sri Lankan, born and raised there, came here for college. I lived on him and his farm for a few months over there, then went to Thailand, did some meditation retreats, went to Philippines and Malaysia. And then basically came back here and kind of recognized, wow, this trajectory of getting a job thing that I was going to do and had been doing isn't for me. So I actually moved to LA, Los Angeles for about a year with a startup company in the medical device industry, preventative medical screening tools, which again was kind of closer in that direction, but still recognized that wasn't for me. So basically fast forward, I moved back there after that company didn't quite start up, with about $10,000 in credit card debt, which was not a fun thing to come back to in Boston. And just like any financial advisor would recommend, I started my own business. So spent more money on that, investing in myself. And that was about 2 years ago, that I started that. So basically trying to find a way that to help people really with their stress and sleep foremost, as I feel those are the two biggest challenges that people face nowadays, is with their stress and sleep, is that we're so overstressed, and like we did in the beginning, so sympathetically dominated, so stuck in this fight or flight mode. So really focusing on that right now. I do health coaching. I work with some organic superfoods, which are companies based in sustainable agriculture. Um, one with going 100% plastic free. Another one is actually someone I met at UMass, Alex Dorr. He's the founder of Mushroom Revival. They plant a tree for every product sold. They use all recycled materials for their packaging. So really trying to find organizations to partner with that can really help people improve their overall health and well-being, and just overall help them be a better person as a whole. So that's kind of the gist of what I do. And now I have a podcast that I really enjoy doing. I like meeting with really cool people, letting them share their story on my platform. And recently I started writing children's books on mindfulness. So I just published my first one a month ago and hopefully have another one coming soon. So really trying to integrate this from, the child level up to adults. I was leading an after school program for about a year and a half while I was building my business, teaching meditation, yoga, gardening, a lot of these things too. So the sustainable food and farming thing has really just been a theme throughout my life of really recognizing how important it is to, work with companies and organizations that are focused on regenerative agriculture and sustainability and not just in it for the money. So that's kind of been my journey and where I'm at now.
My name is Megan, she, her, hers pronouns. Right now, I'm working at an organization, a nonprofit called Grow Food Northampton. We own 120 acres of land in Northampton and we lease that to farmers. We also have about 300 community garden plots. And we have a few acres that we grow our own food just for like food pantries and all food for donation. We have a huge education program throughout the whole district, actually. We have a big piece in like food access in the area as well. Since the pandemic started, we created this program with the Northampton Survival Center and the Pioneer Valley Workers Center, and we're just giving out free food twice a week at a bunch of different locations around town. And it's incredible how many people we're serving, and the whole mission, our piece of the mission, Grow Food Northampton, we are purchasing food from all of the local growers. So, really trying to keep them afloat and get people, the healthy local food that is around them for free. Nonprofit work kind of naturally is, I fill in a lot of gaps, which is really fun. I love just like having my hands on like everything, a little piece of everything, and just like a team effort that we have. My main role is I'm the admin manager and community engagement coordinator. So admin side, I'm kind of like doing bookkeeping things and stuff that might be a little boring, but has to be done for an organization. And the more exciting stuff for me is I'm our farm to school coordinator. So really working with the high school primarily in bringing local food to them and working with students to kind of create, educational opportunities for the students in the high school, as well as like other kind of regular like campaigns that we do and like flyering and just kind of getting the word out about our organization on a broader level. So yeah, that's me. Oh, and I guess that last piece of the question primarily focused on education and access during my time at UMass. So I think it's definitely showing in what I'm doing, and it's incredible. Yeah, it's so nice to be back in this space and just remember it all.
I think one thing that I tried to be very mindful of is to try everything. And I heard a lot of people saying, I think I want to do this, but I'm unsure. And that's perfectly okay. I'd say just, kind of follow that intuition, that inner voice. Like what is drawing you in? Like, is it the permaculture? Is it the education? Is it the sustainable production? Whatever it is, just go into that and try that, because, there's no real downside to trying that. The worst case scenario is now you know you don't like it, and now you can cross it off your list. So kind of a little, I don't know if mantra is the right word, but a little saying I could live by is that I'm open to everything and attached to nothing. One lesson that I learned that I would do differently is when I moved to LA, I made that decision in about 2.5 weeks. Basically, I got an offer to work with a startup company. I'd never been to LA. I knew nothing about the area. I knew nothing about the company. And basically, I just went there and packed in my car and drove across the country in about 2.5 weeks. So I'd say next time, I'd say do a little bit more research about that. But yeah, no regrets. Three areas that I always say, whether it's, business or life in general, is just being patient, persistent, and consistent. If you have a goal you're working towards, recognizing that in this age of, instant gratification, nothing's going to happen overnight that really is worthwhile. So recognizing that any goal you're working towards is going to take some time, and that's okay. And there are going to be inevitable stumbling blocks, and it's not going to be easy, but that's also part of the fun of the journey of it. So I think, just being journey orientated, not so much outcome dependent. And like, I think all the panelists here that have talked so far is like, if what you want to do isn't a thing, just create it. And I know it's easier said than done, but just because the job doesn't exist, that could be an opportunity for you to create that. So I'd say, just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean that it's impossible. And that's kind of my message without rambling for about 30 more minutes.
After UMass, I actually returned to a farm that I had worked at quite a bit previously, and with like some new experience, I took a like management level job. And I would say my only, I won't say regret, but I learned that like that may have not been the best path, just because I kind of like left UMass and I was like, oh, this farm is kind of dysfunctional in like so many ways, but like maybe I'll be able to kind of like help steer the ship into like a more functional space. And it turned out that wasn't really the case. And so I think my like stumbling block there was just kind of realizing like perhaps a better path could be to go someplace that's really working well, treating their employees well, et cetera, instead of trying to like change the culture of a place that is not really doing those things to the best of their ability. I also, another stumbling block was that in 2018, when I was working there, I got a pretty severe back injury in like May, and I was 25 and like down for the count for most of the season. I just had this like brutal sciatica and was like, this is not sustainable. So thinking about like the fact that I wanted to be growing food for a really long time, that at a fairly young age I was facing a pretty intense physical challenge, I was like, what can I do for my personal health that will kind of bring more balance into my life? Wishing that I had taken Sarah's Wellness for Farmers class. But it really had involved like just making time for some and prioritizing my physical and mental health, as well as the work that I was doing on the farm. And then kind of along the lines of what Rob was saying, like at some point the opportunity to apply for the job at Land for Good came up, and I had like so much identity tied up in being a farmer and like a full-time farmer. But that job just really spoke to some of my other values that I couldn't really get at with like a full-time farming schedule. And so I made that jump, became a part-time farmer, which has been fantastic. It's been a lot harder this year running my own farm, but it still provides even more balance to my life in ways that were sort of unexpected. And I get to exercise some different muscles in my brain to do that work as well. So not a super concise or easy to follow answer, but that's what I've got.
My stepping stones. Well, I kind of took an early step, I think, while I was still in school. I took an internship which I was able, with Sarah's help, to count for credits towards my major, practicum credits. But I did an internship with Just Roots. It's a similar nonprofit focused on, food security, food access, and also like has their own community farm. Really rad group of folks up in Greenfield. And so they were working on this very specific project focused on the health benefits of a CSA share. So it was very research oriented, and at the time I was also very like interested in the health aspect of it and the social aspect of it, and just wanted to get my foot in the door with a really rad organization. So I did an internship there for the semester, and then after that, I applied for a position called with them that is through TerraCore. I don't know if folks are familiar with that yet, but it's a cohort of AmeriCorps, and it matches folks with nonprofits that are focused on, food access, land conservation and stewardship, and a bunch of just different like nonprofits focused on land efforts, and it's all, when I was in it, it was only Massachusetts, but they just spread to Rhode Island and Connecticut, I think.
Yeah, Connecticut too.
Yeah. So they're expanding. So that was like a year of service, 11-month period technically, but it was an amazing experience. It was very challenging, and you live on a living stipend, so it's it was a privilege to kind of be able to do that. Not everyone can afford to do that as a stepping stone. But it was just an incredible like year of just being a sponge and soaking up everything, and like putting my hands, like I said in the beginning, just doing whatever I could to learn as much as I could about the field, and kind of also, what you guys are doing in school, like find a direction for myself, just kind of figure it out a little bit more by being in the deep end with a nonprofit. And it was incredible. And then that year was up, and they didn't have any positions, which I was hoping for, but the very similar organization, actually closer to where I lived, had a position open. So it kind of just serendipitously like worked out. And I applied and got the job, and here I am. I mean, I only applied for the administrative position that I have now, which is part of my position, but the organization grew, thankfully and excitingly, and I've been growing into kind of more of what I want to be doing, which is the education piece and kind of like boots on the ground piece of the work that they do. So that's kind of my short stepping stone story.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this while everybody else has been sharing. I think there is not an identifiable moment. Well, I guess my freshman year of college, I was studying things that I did not like. I came in as a biology major and was not like finding meaning in that. And then switched to environmental science, which was like a glorified biology major to me in my freshman year. And so I think that like finding SFF as a major was like a really big turn in what I had seen for myself when I was going to college, and also like a lot of new exposure, like sustainable food systems and just like food system work was really not something that I was familiar with. But as once I got into SFF, I think there was nothing that I didn't like. I think that I tried a lot though, and I feel like what I would love to share is like I feel like I got my hands in a lot of things and was able to identify like what pieces of what things I enjoyed, and then find more things from there that incorporated more of those pieces of what I enjoyed. So I would say like I did a lot of things that I really loved, and I also was like, this part of what I feel very strongly about or that's really important to me is not being expressed or met like in this place. So I know that I like this, and I know that there's more that I would like to do with this, and maybe like I can find more of that. And I think that over time, I feel very fortunate to have been able to encounter a series of opportunities where I was able to be challenged and able to learn a lot. I also think like I just would encourage you all, like in terms of if you're like listening to this, I'm sure you're all just also like thinking about how this could apply to you in your context. And I think like getting really uncomfortable, putting yourselves in really really different situations, getting to know different people and different ways of thinking is also really important to kind of contextualizing like what is of interest. And there were a lot of opportunities that I had that pushed me that were really like difficult, and that I think had me thinking about a lot of intersections as well of like different issues. And one that is coming to mind that that I work at the intersection of a lot right now is immigration and food systems work, which of course is so interconnected and something that what like I felt was really important for me to educate myself more about, and also just like immigration systems more generally. And so I think there were aspects of, you know, all of these different pieces of work that I was doing that helped me identify like what is most important to me. And I think continuing to return to that over time is kind of what I just want to leave you all thinking about, is just like getting to the core of you know, like what do you feel really passionately about, what do you feel like is making the change that you want to see in the world, and like what critiques do you have about these different things too that you can like continue to either push for or find different ways to go about. I feel like I could say a lot more, but if I said any more, it would be way too long. So that's where I'm gonna leave it.
Sometimes they integrate really well, other times they integrate horribly. So like, how to put this? The nature of the Land for Good job is such that there's a field agent in every New England state, and the job was sort of designed with farmers in mind, thinking that, you know, we often learn best from our peers and people who have similar like lived experience. And so I tend to be busiest for that job starting about this time of year through March or April. So it's kind of nice that it has a rhythm that's opposite the growing season for me. And yeah, I guess getting back to the uncertainty, I have no idea if this is like one big thing or like two separate things that at some point might diverge from each other. Like, I guess I would love to be able to work full-time farming and growing food for people. But for me and my partner financially, that's just not really feasible. Like, I have a considerable amount of student debt, like probably some of you do. And so having that off-farm income is really important just to be able to pay the bills. And at the end of the day, I really like that work too. So it's not like I'm begrudgingly like reporting to my Land for Good job. But yeah, I would say to be determined whether or not that's something that sticks around for the long haul, or if I can make farming full-time my preferred reality. Yeah, I mean, every day looks so different. And I don't know, I feel like with farming, one thing that you just need to get used to is that you're gonna often end up doing things that you never would have dreamt of doing that day. So like, not only is every day just different, but it's sometimes just so unexpected. I'm trying to think of a good example. Well, I don't know, like we had our first killing frost in mid-September. It was actually, no one I know in Massachusetts got a frost at that time, but like we did down here. And so just like frantic harvesting of like every single eggplant and pepper and, you know, all these other frost sensitive things in the field is one example. But I don't know, on the day to day, I try and like have my week fairly predictable. So like Mondays and Wednesdays are the days I typically work for Land for Good. And So we've timed everything kind of around our other constraints. So like we always harvest for wholesale accounts on Tuesdays and deliver on Wednesdays. We have our CSA pickups kind of similarly scheduled. And then, yeah, I don't know. That's the way we approach it, but it doesn't always go as planned. That's for sure.
It's so hard to say. My work is very varied. I definitely relate to Megan in like where a horizontally run organization that shares like every random task. So sometimes like I remember when I first got here, I was like writing press releases, like all this stuff that I had like never done, had no skills in, but just like you get thrown into it and do it. But if I had to categorize, because I do, otherwise I could talk again for a while. I would say that there are some general things, like a big thing that I do in a week and a month. A lot of like strategy time, like strategy meetings is a huge thing as we run campaigns against large corporations, which our current one is Wendy's. So if you want to join our campaign, you can boycott Wendy's. I feel like with my organizer hat on, I have to at least put some call to action in here. I'm on calls a lot with, I coordinate the steering committee of the Student Farm Worker Alliance, and we're a decentralized network of students and young people that work across the country. So we've been using Zoom much longer than the pandemic has been demanding Zoom use. So a lot of that, a lot of again, presentations and education kind of coordination, where we this fall have been focusing on trying to get virtually into a lot of classrooms, worker groups, to continue to put on people's radar the issues that farm workers face in this country, and especially during COVID. You know, COVID has brought a whole new level of work to my job, as migrant farm workers have been among the least protected groups of people in the country who have not had access to personal protective equipment, testing, live in overcrowded situations because of, you know, they get paid sub-poverty wages, things like that. So actually, like more recently, a lot has been focused on a COVID campaign that we have been coordinating, distributing masks in the community. We respond to a number of different needs that the farm worker community has, which can be very, very variable. So I'm here as a community support, and then for my job, a lot of like strategy, working with people from across the country in different areas of how to bring work of the Student Farm Worker Alliance and different types of organizing to all different areas of the country. So that's some of it. And that is also outside of times where we're planning major actions, which is like a different crazy time where we're working a lot to do like different logistical work, to put on events that thousands of people come to, lots of outreach. My job includes a lot of outreach. Yeah, that's like a snapshot.
I could say that probably half of my day is on the computer, just doing like, you know, research and putting numbers into spreadsheets and doing that kind of stuff. But then the other half of my day is very, and this is like my favorite part, is very out in the community and out in the garden. And, you know, I get to kind of see and document like a bunch of, like all of our programs, which is really nice, to kind of be that glue. And also like see all the different community members who interact with us. So a lot of it is, yeah, like creating new community, like connection opportunities. So, you know, calling people's households and asking them how this program is going, and, you know, meeting them in the garden and, you know, following up with them, or creating new opportunities to connect with students, you know, meeting them where they're at. So it can really vary in that way, you know, community work, you gotta show up to their tables sometimes, as one of my favorite Sarah quotes. I don't know if you shared that with everyone yet. But, you know, I see like this growth and this opportunity where I am now. So, you know, I just feel like where I am, I'm in this point of learning and growth and community that will get me to that place where I will be out and doing these things that, you know, I want to be doing.
But for the most part, my days are kind of focused around, having time for myself, specifically doing some form of movement. I think is really important. I've also had injuries over the years, so I notice how much higher my stress levels are and how much less clear I am when I haven't moved throughout the day. So I tend to really focus on getting a workout in, or if, working out isn't the right movement today, going for a walk. So doing some sort of movement every morning, I think is really essential part of my day. That's really a big priority. And then for me, a lot of my business is based through social media. I mean, Instagram is where most of my business comes from. So there's a lot of time doing content creation. There's a lot of time networking. Just had doing podcasts, whether that's being a guest on someone else's podcast or inviting guests to my own. And there's a lot of connecting on social media, which again, it can be a lot to be holding my phone all day, but it's part of the life I chose. So I take responsibility for that, and try to do as much on my computer so I'm not holding my phone all the time. But yeah, there's a lot of like direct messaging on Instagram, as my following has been growing pretty decently the past few months. I get a lot of direct messages every day now, so really kind of just trying to support people that way. And again, that's where a lot of my business comes from as well. And then on the other side is just really kind of like I said, with the exercise or the movement, is really just taking the time to disconnect. So when I'm doing, going for a walk or doing a workout, my phone's on airplane mode. Like I don't want to be distracted, or when I go for a walk, I don't even bring my phone with me. I just want to be away from technology as much as I can, because so much of my business kind of comes, sporadically, in a sense that, I don't know when that person who I was reaching out to is going to give me a call back if we don't have a scheduled call. So kind of always being available, but then when I'm disconnecting, just fully disconnecting. Phone goes off at night. There's no messages coming in. I'm not waking up to that. So really prioritizing sleep, prioritizing my movement, and I think just really taking the time to disconnect multiple times a day, I think is really important for my own health and sanity. But overall, I'd say most of my time is on my phone. Instagram is my main source. So a lot of content creation, a lot of connecting, and a lot of me time, which is really nice.
It was the first like official job that I had. I graduated in May of 2019, so not that long ago. And I had like a summer job, and then I came down and I actually interned for the Alliance for Fair Food, which is like the larger umbrella that the Student Farm Worker Alliance sits under, for the fall of last year. And then at the end of my internship, which was a really good way to see if this work was for me or not, because it is, I think it was like a really valuable experience to kind of like test the pace and the intensity of it. But then I was brought onto staff at the beginning of this calendar year.
Sarah's ag leadership classes are like the best. Lots of opportunity to, connect outside of the community as well, and like really hone in on your kind of focus group, where you want to educate folks. I also was able to take some education classes. I think some were like grad level classes that were open to students. So, to kind of broaden your scope a little bit, take as many like interdisciplinary courses as you can. That was, I think, a big help in my experience. Also, just like, look for opportunities in the community for like internships. I know Grow Food, my organization, we host interns, usually in the spring, college interns. And I know there's a lot of other folks that are doing that. I think it's a little harder to navigate right now because of the virtual world and just the nature of like some of our tasks. But yeah, I mean, just ask if anyone needs a volunteer and show up and be there and ready to learn, and that'll really like get your foot in the door.
I think in general in movement work, it demands so much of your, like, every piece of you all the time that it's really hard to, like, it's very difficult. I think my answer that I have though is community, and like not just one taking on those types of like struggles alone or not like sharing that, but also I think like having a really strong community that is with you in it or that supports you even if they're not with you in it, that you can like fall back on.
Get to check in with yourself about that question, you know, how am I making the space to disconnect, and do I have a good like support system that I can reach out to? How can I, you know, distribute this weight? You know, if it's a specific project that you're working on, like don't just never be afraid to ask for help or ask questions. Even if it feels like everyone else around you is strung out and like in the same boat, you know, just connect with everyone about what you're going through, and it'll usually, you know, it'll ebb and flow. It'll ebb and flow.
You know, as you're going through your journey, focus on, you know, who you want to be and what your purpose is.
Yeah, just thank you all, be well. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions too.
All of your journeys are going to be so different, and you'll find your little mantras and find the things that work for you, and just like be excited about it.